Hi, and welcome to Revolutionary Rompereglas, where I'm talking to Melody Leon.
Yeah.
And so, Melody, I want you to just talk about your business, who you serve, and why you're doing this work.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Melody, and I have a business called Makeup and Magick. And really, at the core of what it is that I offer as a services is I always tell people think like fairy godmother meets curandera, where it's like I can teach you tools for transformation, for evolution, and that can be on the inside, on a mind, body, or soul level. So some of the things that I incorporate are like makeup lessons, and we not only teach makeup, but we use it as, we're giving you some more tools so that you can use your beauty routine as a ritual for self-compassion. So everything that we do, whatever road that we take, the goal is just for feeding and the development of the divinity within you. I think a lot of my clients are women who are leaders, whether it's, thought leaders, leaders in their industry, women who are also healers, because I've been really blessed with the gift to be able to shake loose some things that
Mhm.
are beneath the surface. So that's, at essence, what we do. It's one-on-one sessions or group trainings, and they're very unique and individual to each person. So we just we tap into the ancestors, we ask to be led in the direction that it needs to go for the highest good. And we just flow with there. And there's a ton of tools that we use in the process. So it's
Yes.
really fun.
Yes, and tapping into the ancestors is what we did
Yeah,
before
we did.
call.
Hmm.
Yes, before recording, because yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a beautiful thing to understand, not only to understand in your mind, but understand through your practice and in the vibration that you show up in, that you have a spiritual support team that's there. But you just you gotta call on it because
Yeah.
they're
They're
not.
just like waiting.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Like they're like, this is your show, but like tag me in.
Yeah, and I met you through Dr. Amanda Kemp,
Yeah.
through Rachel Justice from the Heart training. And I'm so glad I did because I remember meeting you and I just felt your incredible presence. You were so in your confidence and so like in command of yourself.
Mhm.
And that really blew me away, and how you unapologetically brought spirituality in because it was just so a part of you that it was just like, boom, ahí está, there it is.
Yeah. It certainly took a while for me to get to that place. And that that leads into my why. Like I need my spirituality to be well. It is so deeply ingrained in the essence of who I am that if I don't present that, obviously in a way that is respectful, but if I don't present that, I'm not showing up fully and I'm not showing up authentically. And one of my core values is to show up in a way that is like fully me, unapologetically, non-judgmentally, but also just understanding like I know who I am, I know the powers that I've been gifted with, and I'm not going to shrink for anyone. I'm also not going to, try to dominate anybody too. You know what I'm saying? If I find that balance, but it's important. And me deeply me, I've always had a spiritual sense since I was young. It's been spoken over me that I've got a lot of healing gifts, but I was born into more of a Catholic Christian type of background,
Okay.
and a lot of those things didn't really resonate. And as I reached for my spiritual sense, something, I was falling short of something. There was something there missing. And it was only when I had a really life-changing situation, and I decided to go and venture in areas that our traditional religions tell us is not okay. But I felt this authentic, deep calling to unbox some of those things. And it was only when I gave myself permission to do those things that I unlock certain things within myself. And it provided a certain level of healing. There's so many things that traditional psychology and traditional religions don't address. And because of slavery and colonization, we don't see these things represented in our daily lives. So there's nothing for us as a frame of reference to say, oh, you're not crazy, you have a gift. Oh, you're not hearing things, that's your ancestors. So when I
Right.
was able to embrace that, there was such a liberation, and I just became a new person. And I'm so grateful for that. So part of my why is understanding that, especially as people of color, there are cultural practices that serve our soul to tap into. And I want to really find this place where traditional psychology and things that I learned in my own healing process are applied, but also those deep cultural roots and connections are brought into the session so that people are able to dive in and take these tools with them, and then just they go off running, because I just kind of sparked that connection.
Yeah, yeah. No, and it's so funny, Melody, because when I saw the name of your business, Makeup and Magick, I'm just like, how does that go together? And then the way that you explained it was so perfect about like the self-compassion and like, yes, self-image, right? How your relationship with yourself, your
Yeah.
physical self, your soul self, it all comes together and it's all an expression of you. And so, for people who are listening that think like all these disparate interests can't come together, here's evidence that it can, right? It's all an expression of you.
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. I think that's a great point. For a long time, I was really confused about how to present myself. I wasn't sure if it would cause brand confusion. And just being able to find the right words has allowed me to understand that, like, whatever is inside of you, that's your natural talent, whatever lights you up that you can do on a bad day and still, like, those days where you're like a 4 and you're not really functioning at your greatest capacity, like if you can show up on a 4 day and still do it well and effortlessly, then that's something that is a gift that's meant for you. And makeup and magic are two things that for me just are so effortless. And not only that, makeup was always very calming for me. So the days, in my early journey when I was really learning how to deal, like, I have complex PTSD. And I've been through some things, and there were times where art is always been a medium, particularly through makeup, for me to channel energy that is not serving me and pour it and create something beautiful from it. So it was always therapeutic for me. And one of the things that I did was, during that time, rather than look in the mirror and tell myself what I didn't like about myself, I poured love and compassion into myself. So all I'm really doing is sharing with people what I've learned how to do in my own healing journey.
Love that. I love that. And that's basically what we all do, is really offer our own story, our own method to people, right? And people just gravitate to you, that for whom that resonates. That's so good. That's so good. So tell me a little bit, Melody, about, there's two things that you said that kind of sparked me. One was recognizing at an early age that you had some sort of a gift, or that you had sort of a spiritual connection. So let's start there.
Yeah. So in addition to, I grew up in a very interesting household where my grandparents raised me, and my grandmother was Catholic, but my grandfather was a santero.
Okay.
Like, weird things would happen, and like I would see my grandma see it, and then she'd be like, "I que eso no na." And I'm like, "I saw you see it." And so there was a lot of things that were, contradictory, and you don't speak of that. But I'm clearly seeing it. And so going through the traditional church, I was always spoken over, like, she's a healer, she's the ability to be a prophet, all these things that, like I said, in the traditional words of the Catholic and Christian church didn't resonate, but there was an energy there that felt authentic. So it came from the church, but then also as a child, I remember it was really hard for me in my early adult years to speak my truth, because as a child, I would see things, and before we are conditioned to not call it like we see it, I was always being told, "Tú no dices eso. You don't say things like that. Like, shh, cállate ya." Like, just always being told to be quiet, to not say those things. And I learned very quickly that I see things very, very, like, much more deep than the average person. So it was just a constant theme. And then, as you grow up and people are telling you these things are not real or not good, but you get a vision, and then over time you'll see a pattern. Like, you get a vision, people call you crazy, you ignore it, it comes true. I mean, there's this pattern over and over again where you're like, there's something to this. So, those are kind of some of the ways that it's evolved from childhood into adulthood now.
When you said the thing like, eso no se dice, you don't talk about that, I felt my hands light up.
Really?
I felt my hands get really tingly. I had this vision of like old viejitas, like whispering, like having to hide the magic.
Yes.
Having to hide the magic.
Yes.
Wouldn't be found out. They wouldn't be judged or shunned or, wow, that was powerful. Yes.
And that comes way before us because, depending on what your religious beliefs are, especially, if you have roots that are African, the Yoruban culture, in order to avoid persecution,
Yes.
And judgment, they would have to literally hide their saints in
Yes.
traditional Catholic candles and
Yeah.
traditional Catholic saint things, just because they couldn't practice openly. So like this has been ingrained in us for generations upon generations upon generations. And a lot of these old viejitas, like you say, like they know deep down inside, like they'll tell you Mother Mary, but they'll be like, oh, well, there's, the Orishas are really a part of that. Like some of them will tell you a little something about it, but overall, there's so much fear of judgment and persecution that we are fed very watered down versions of our culture.
Yeah. And that the Yoruban connection to Catholicism is the reason why your grandmother and your grandfather could get together.
Right. He's straight from Havana.
Yeah.
Very Cuban.
Yeah. So, okay. So you talked about having C-PTSD, and you talked about having a life-changing situation. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and just share sort of how that's played into your mission, your values, your purpose?
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up in a very abusive home, and growing up in a situation where, in our culture, we often don't, the same way we hide the magic, we hide the trauma, we hide the pain, we just hide everything. And it's not, especially back, I was born in 1983. So especially in like the 80s and the 90s, there wasn't, the internet wasn't as prevalent. People don't have as much access to information. So it's just like, they just kind of deal with things in really messed up ways. So if you don't heal with those things, then you just become an adult with these traumas that never got really addressed. So I went through traumas as a child, and then I brought those patterns into adulthood. And that includes physical, sexual, emotional abuse. And it became complex, and it got me to this place where, in addition to not dealing with those traumas, I also had all of these spiritual gifts that nobody really explained to me. And it made for a cocktail that led to some severe depression. And I made an attempt to take my life in my 20s. And it was that situation where it was actually like an amazing situation. My mom had a vision. She like saved my life, got me to the hospital within minutes of it being too late. Like, and my mom also has a lot of psychic gifts. And I say all that to say that everything that was so compounded that led me to that place where I felt like I just had no hope and I couldn't deal with it anymore. It was a culmination that when I came back from that situation, I realized that it wasn't that I didn't want to live anymore. It was that I didn't want to live like that anymore. And that something had to be done. Oh, I just got chills. And I realized that I needed to give myself permission to do things differently, because trying to fit into the box that people were trying to fit me in was just literally eating me alive. And, I gave myself permission after that to go and get help. I went and I got therapy, and I was with a therapist, a trauma therapist, for 6 years. And then I was able to go into understanding my culture and my spirituality and what that meant for me. And that was really like the entryway to taking an approach that was both mental, because once you have your mental faculties in order, then, you check all the boxes and you're like, okay, well, this is a healthy mental frame looks like. Then you feel a little more comfortable going into the other realms, because, your mental space is okay.
You have that processing space.
Yes.
Yeah. You can assimilate it. Yeah.
So that for me was how all of that just led to this, like, it was like a phoenix rising moment for me, honestly. And
Wow. And to do that at that age, right? That is, a lot of people in their 20s, they're still in the patterns and things like that. And it isn't until their 30s when there's a crash and burn moment, like that's for me, they don't start really unraveling a lot of that stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think the addition of my spiritual and psychic gifts, like, as I was getting to a place of more and more sadness, those voices were getting louder and louder. So I
Okay.
had like an extra layer of get it together, honey. Okay.
Yeah. It's when you start to get the call-ins or the call outs, you're just like, all right, yeah, absolutely. And I had the pleasure of having a session with you just last week, or just a couple of days ago. And it was so amazing because, as a coach, as a body psychotherapist, as an energy person, I can track people pretty well. And you were tracking me faster than I could track anything. Yeah, it was so satisfying to me because I love when people are faster than me.
I'm glad that you enjoyed it. That's why I think I have a tendency to attract people who are already doing this work on some level, especially because they need, I don't really have to, there's always a certain level of tact and compassion and intuition that's needed, but I can go deeper faster with people in your position because you've already started to do this. You've already primed that pump. And I think one of the great things about it is, when we talk about coaching and we talk about those things where we're doing a lot of things with words, but when I'm working with somebody who's really open to this work, like women like you, any people like you, I just do tend to attract a lot more women. The words are really, it almost seems like a background thing.
Yeah.
It's like the words are there just to keep our mind chewing, but it's like my ancestors are just all up in your energy, like, and it goes beyond, it goes beyond the session. Because, even after the session, like, we open up the session connecting energetically and calling everyone in, and then even afterwards, like, you're like, I heard from your spirit guides like the next day, and they're like, we need you to do one more energy clearing, like, so it's this beautiful thing where it's like we have this time, we have this space, we have these words to give one another things for our minds to chew on when we get too into our head. But I feel like my real gift comes from the way that I'm able to really get into the heart and the soul of the energy and do those silent things and help contribute my energy to contributing to creating the space to dismantle those things. And when a woman like you that's so empowered and so willing to do the work, when I contribute my energy to allowing for that, it's like a catalyst, and it's amazing.
Right. And there's a piece around trust in there, right? Like, if I feel safe and I trust, I can let you in and I can let you do whatever energetic transmission needs to happen a través de los ancestors, right? But if I don't trust, I'm gonna be closed.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm just thinking about that right now because I don't have an easy time trusting people, but when I'm in the hands of someone that has really honed their craft like you, then I'm like wide open. I'm just like, do your thing, and with some of my mentors, I'm like, yeah, do what you need to do,
Yeah. That says a lot about you as a person. So, I think we all have moments where we you're a little less trusting. We've all been through things, but the
Right.
fact that you've gone through those things and you're able to like really shed that fear or that block off enough to do it, like, that's just such a beautiful thing to say about you as a woman. That says a lot about you. And I just want to commend you for allowing yourself to get out of your own way enough to just have that raw vulnerability. That's beautiful.
Thank you, Melody.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I really love about you too is your sense of humor.
Oh, yeah, yeah, girl, it's necessary.
look at some of your posts on Instagram and I'm just like, oh my God, this is hilarious. And I really, again, this is just another piece of you, like your authentic expression, connecting to the makeup, connecting to the compassion, connecting to the magic. And I want to know, like, where else do you use humor in your life? Like, how else does it support you and the work?
Everywhere, girl. Everywhere. Because I'll tell you one thing, healers, we're intense. Like
Hells yeah.
it gets really real in here. You know what I'm saying? So I found in one of the best ways for me to allow for enough space between me and intensity so that I can process things compassionately, humor sometimes, most times, not a dismissive humor, but the type of humor that allows for a change in energy and state so that I can step back, change the state enough, and then step back from a better energetic viewpoint and then allow for things to process more deeply. I think especially as women, we've been taught to be shrunk. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And anytime we are too big, we have a tendency to police ourselves. So for me, in the beginning of my journey, when a lot of the things were brought up that were difficult for me to deal with, I noticed that my natural tendency was to make a joke about it, but it was dismissive. So I was like, okay, the joking is helping, but the dismissive isn't. So I started being able to kind of like fine tune my natural tendency to be able to be more beneficial for me. And I've just always been a naturally funny person. So we incorporated, like my wife and I, we incorporate little things like, say we identify a pattern that doesn't serve us. And then as we're trying to show up as our best selves, we fall into that pattern. Rather than judge myself or judge her, are you familiar with DJ Khaled?
Yes.
So like he has this one show that he was on and he told the dude, he was like, congratulations, you played yourself, right? So there'd be times where like we'll do things like that. Like I'll fall into a pattern and she'll be like, congratulations, you played yourself. Like, you know what I mean? So and it's just so funny. And it allows you to just like that tight butt energy. You know what I'm saying? Like it just releases that and you're like, yeah, I'm bugging. Yeah, I'm bugging. I play it myself right now. So and I'll do that like even like when I'm going through that, when my wife is going through something, or really anytime the energy just needs to be lightened a little, humor is a beautiful way to do it. Rather than ranting about for 20 minutes in the direction of why all of these things don't feel good to me, I will just quickly make a joke and just be like, you know what? Yeah, that's definitely some bullshit, but now what? Like, you know what I mean? So, because every moment that you spend in the energy of what you don't like or is a moment that you're creating a future with those same feelings, because the universe is listening to your feelings and your expectations, not your words. So I think it's really important to, whether it's humor, whether it's meditation, to have some way of tracking your internal condition and being able to say, is this in service of the direction I'm trying to go with my core values? And use something to help you pivot.
Yeah, because I know that I have been very hard on myself. Like when I make mistakes, right? It's like, I feel like empathic people tend to be really hard on themselves. And the humor just takes the sting out of it. It creates a little bit of that lightness and that spaciousness to shift, to pivot in that moment.
Yes.
That is so true.
Yeah.
And it's that way of being gentle with yourself.
Yeah, I think, we all could use a little bit more self-compassion and self-love.
Yeah.
That's not something where a lot of us are modeled. That's not modeled for us.
No.
And the way that where a lot of us were raised and conditioned even through schooling is like, if you do bad, you're punished. If you do good and other people like it, you're rewarded.
Yes.
And oftentimes that works if you're people pleasing, but it doesn't work if you're trying to be authentic and if you're trying to like really honor yourself.
Right.
So it's important that we start to train ourselves when things are difficult to have a level of compassion with ourselves, because everything that we say, our body is listening. We are the observer. We are the energy. Shamans call it, we are the rider of the horse. Like our body is the horse and we are the rider.
Mm.
And and so when we speak, our body's listening. And so if we're harsh with ourselves, we got to look at it like if we were talking to a kid. If you scream at a kid, they're going to like shrink up and they're not going to feel safe to come to you. So you have to also cultivate that within your body. So when your body brings something up, rather than being mean to yourself, create the space to say, you know what, that's not in the direction that we want to go, and I forgive you. You really got to talk to yourself in a compassionate way and allow for that space to take place, and your body will respond to you differently once you start responding to it with more compassion.
That also ties into self-trust, right? Like a trusting relationship with yourself. If you're punishing yourself with your internal dialogue, you're going to shrink from yourself. You're not going to have that compassionate, gentle relationship.
Right.
Yeah. And that creates like a separation.
Yes.
You're not bonded to yourself.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Because when you're not being honest with yourself, or when you're not being kind to yourself, even if it's not a logical thought process.
Yeah.
The way that you do this internal dance with self is really reliant. In order for you to take control in an empowering way, it's
Yeah.
important that you give your body the reason to trust you, that you cultivate those things, because if you haven't, you're not going to go as deep as you want to.
And you are really impeccable about vibration.
Yes.
Yes. I find that you are really good at like just clearing everyday rituals. What are some of the rituals that you engage in to maintain that frequency, that vibration?
Yeah. So first thing in the morning, ish, sometimes it takes me a little bit to get here. I'm like, oh, I'm here. But one of the things that I do is an opening ceremony, which basically is opening up the vibrations, like the fields of the energetic fields around me. I invite in different allies. I invite in my ancestors. I ask that not only am I blessed, but the spirits and the land that I'm on receive benefit and healing from the ceremony that I'm bringing. I make it a point to, one of the things I always say is place my brain in service of my heart, turn all my thoughts and actions to prayers and blessings. May I be used as a vessel for the highest good of everyone involved. So I'm very deliberate about the space that I create. I cleanse myself, then I cleanse my home.
That's just a morning ritual?
Oh yeah, that's just the morning. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that's so, but it can be done in a short amount of time. You know what I mean? Like I can take
the beautiful intentionality of it.
Oh yeah, it's important because your mind needs direction. Your body needs direction. Like we've been trained to look outside of ourselves or look for something to need direction. So you got to give it to yourself, and call in on your support. So then throughout the day, so I invite my ancestors to talk to me throughout the day to let me know what it's there, let me know what they need for healing, and just invite all of those things into the day. And I remind myself that my time here on earth, my air time, I want to be responsible for bringing love and healing and blessings. I believe that that's what my purpose is. So I'm just very intentional about that. Throughout the day, I'll do different things like smudge or light a candle or do something. And then at the end, I kind of do all of it in reverse. Whereas if I ended off talking to Pachamama and Papa Cielo and then went into the different spirits, at the end, I'll start with the spirits and close off with Papa Cielo and Pachamama and close the ceremony and thank them for the opportunity to provide healing for everyone involved. So that's why I say I need my spirituality to be well. It directs my life.
Absolutely. Yes. There's a lot of, it really holds your day.
Yeah.
The day holds your life. I really love that. I love the intentionality, the opening of the day, the closing of the day. For some people, it's a gratitude practice.
Yes.
I feel very grateful, but I don't have like a gratitude practice, but I look around and I'm just like, I'm taking it in. It's part of what I call pleasure practices.
Mm-hmm. I love your pleasure practices.
But yes, I also want to bring more real ritual into my day, like real things that I do that I can tangibly touch and feel, right? Yes.
Well, I often look at it like when you're dating someone, right? You got to make time for them. You got to get to know them. And
Yeah.
the part of you that is more intentional and more aligned with spirit in ways that you haven't already mastered, you got to make time for that person.
Yeah.
So I just, from people don't need to commit their lives to it like I do. It's just about putting a couple of things, that's my sole purpose. I know that. But you can bring magical waves of change into your life by just, taking 5 minutes a day to journal, or to just, if you like candles and you like oils and herbs, like, just do a little practice. Just so if that's something that interests you, you can definitely follow, like, on Facebook and Instagram. I am always putting little clips of little rituals that you can do. So it's Makeup and Magick, Magic with a K.
Yeah.
And those are just little practices that you can do. Just make it a point to say, on Wednesday at 7:00, I'm going to do something, and then make it fun. So it's not like, oh, this is another thing I got to do. It's like, all right, ancestors, 7:00, I'm going to do it. Lead me to something that's going to be fun to do this. And just go from there. Don't overthink it. Make it a fun thing rather than, oh, I got to do this thing.
Right. Yes. I have it actually on my phone calendar. I have a reminder. It says, invest in yourself as an energy being.
Yes, I love it.
And if I don't have it in there, I won't do it. But when I have it in there, I'm just like, my rigidity is like, oh, got to do that,
Yes.
and I do it and I feel better afterwards. Sometimes my kids are fighting and I go to my candle, I change the water out, I light the sage, and I'm like, I pray for harmony, and they stop.
Yeah, because you're that powerful.
Yeah, it's just changes. Like, we are powerful beings, and that intentionality really, it invites that power into the space. Yeah, I love it.
I think if you take the time to study multiple religions, you'll see that many of them say that we have the power to command with our word. We have the power to shift things, which is the intentionality that we put out there. And if you're willing to become curious about that, and you're willing to realize that you are worthy enough to really command that, you will quickly see that it's real. And you'll start to see, so, quickly, when I coach people, when people come to me for extended periods of time, I created a system called Dream Big. And dream is each letter is a phase for this process of connecting to your inner divine being. And as a result of doing those things, the big is breadcrumbs. You start to see breadcrumbs. So you'll take a chance, you'll see something, and all of a sudden, like, you'll believe that you can do this. And then you put that intentionality out there, and you'll start to see little breadcrumbs to let you know that this is real. And then after you do that for a while, I is intuitively and instinctively, these things come.
Sorry about that.
I is intuitively and instinctively. So these things start to come without you having to try and convince yourself so much. Yeah. And then G is just, you're grounded in that. That becomes a part of you. So I just want to encourage anybody to understand that, like, this is a marathon, not a race, but believe in yourself enough to be willing to be surprised and delighted, and just watch the breadcrumbs come.
Yeah. I think that's so important for us to bring magic into our everyday lives, because I think that is just one of the many ways that we bring the spirit world, or our divine, into the material world, right? Into our three-dimensional existence. And I feel like, in order to really, really love yourself and really dismantle those internalized systems of oppression, we have to have a spiritual grounding, right? Because when your brain is talking shit to you, there has to be a bigger truth, right? That you live in, right? To anchor in that.
Yeah, that was beautifully said, sis. That was beautifully said. And it's a part of who we are.
Yeah.
And it's important that we bring it in, and we understand that not only can we bring it into this realm, but we can change this realm with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And what do you do, Melody, when, like, a lot of spiritual entrepreneurs, leaders, are afraid of stepping into their power, building a business around this work? What were some of your biggest blocks and fears?
Oh, well, for me, one of the biggest blocks was overcoming the trauma that was done through to my throat chakra energy by
Oh,
being told not to speak.
yes.
So a lot of the things that I want to present this in a way that takes it outside the realm of transaction.
Yeah.
It's not like I bought a coach, they gave me a program, my business manifested. There's an energy block.
Mhm.
Work on your own divinity, and the universe has a bigger plan that's way better than anything that you can think of before you invited energy, source
Yeah.
spirit to come in with you. So for me, what was really important for me was to get over that fear and just allow myself to speak. And I put it out there that I wanted to do this work fearlessly. And bit by bit, I was led to people who gave me the validation that I needed. And because I just at that place, I wasn't able to give myself that validation. When you're looking at coaches and you're looking at programs, they're like, oh, well, what's going to separate you from the person that has a doctorate? And I'm like, a gift that I was born with that they can't teach, but okay. Like,
Yes, yes, yes.
they don't got this shit at Harvard, sis. You know.
Right. No.
However, I understood that, but I didn't understand that, and I realized that there was a disconnect, and I just put that out there. So I would say one of the first things that I did was I realized that I had worth. I realized that this was my purpose, but I realized that there were things that were in the way, and I had no idea how to deal with them. So I humbly asked Spirit to guide me, and then I was dedicated to the work that was presented to me to release all of those energetic blocks. And like magic, I was given opportunity after opportunity, that started to lead all these things. And then, I was doing this very part-time. I had a bridal business pre-COVID doing makeup. And that all shut down with COVID. And now, and something inside of me was like, now you have no excuse. Because I would be invited to things, but I had a wedding to do. I'd be invited to speak, but I had a wedding to do. So COVID, even though I don't want to take away from some of the terrible things that came from it, certainly provided the
Push.
yeah, certainly. Yeah.
Yeah. The push to step into the space that you were not like, we sort of
Like
resisting.
double dutching. Right.
Absolutely. Okay. So I want to let listeners know how to connect with you online, how to book a session with you.
Sure.
Where can listeners find you?
So if you're looking to book a session, I can be found in Makeup and Magick with a K.com/shop. And you'll be able to book a session there. And if you want to follow me on Instagram and Facebook, it's both Makeup and Magick with a K. And you can, like you'll see on my Instagram, it'll say like, expect makeup, magic, glitter, foul language and humor. You know what I mean? Because it really is me on social media. Like I am all over the place. I say some things that you're like, did she just say that? I'm like, yes, I did. You know what I'm saying? And certain things only feel better when you end it with like a fuck. So
Yeah.
it just adds that like oomph that's needed, So I like to really share some things that incorporate the blending of spirituality and just raw authenticity. And some makeup and magic tips in there too.
Qué rico. This feels so good. This is
Oh,
so
good.
good. So final question, Melody.
Yes.
What does being a rompereglas mean to you
Oh,
in your life?
yeah. I think for me, it means that I get to show up in a way that is just free and authentic and empowered. It means giving people permission to shine just by being my authentic self. And it means knowing that what I'm choosing to bring into this world is going to have a ripple effect for generations to come. So that's what it means to me.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much for agreeing to be in this together. I'm so in my pleasure.
Yes, sis. Well, thank you for not only inviting me to be a part of this, but just for just being who you are. I feel like just in the short amount of time that I've known you and gotten to work with you, you've introduced an energy and a perception into my life that has really helped me grow too. So I'm just really grateful that we've crossed paths.
Yes, me too. Thank you so much.
Yes, sis. Thank you too. Have a great day.
Okay, bye.